So welcome to the White Rock Farmers Market Board of Directors orientation. Your commitment to our market and community is much appreciated, and we're so glad you stepped up to join the board. So on this slide, we talk about orientation objectives. Now, so our goal is to have a successful board. And so we want to clarify what our governance role is on our board and review our responsibilities and policies and set some clear expectations for our board members. And then we're going to move to the next slide. So our mission is really simple, where community and freshness meets every Sunday. The White Rock Farmers Market has a rich history. We're coming into our 26th year and we have a strong impact on our local community. Over the years, we've grown into a hub of fresh foods and local artisans and community connection. And looking ahead, we want to focus on expanding our reach and expanding our market and deepening our connection with our community and ensuring that our market is sustainable. Thank you. And next slide. So let's talk about some of the positions on our board. As the president, I lead the board and represent the market. I'm your spokesperson. And vice president, what they do is they support the president and steps in when needed. The secretary manages the meeting notes and records and correspondence, and the treasurer oversees our financial records and compliance. Now, each player obviously plays a vital role, and collaboration among us is very key to effective governance. And then the next slide. So every board member, even if you're not a director, has important responsibilities. It is important that each of us, we participate in our board meetings, we have good conversations, and we vote together, and then and just not just on a board level, but we need to go to the market and we need to talk to our vendors and the people who visit, because we want to be that kind of market where people feel welcome. And that's our board knows the people. And that what makes us stand out. We are not like, oh, I don't know who they are. No, I know Elaine. She's you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that is very important to us. So market outreach is a big thing for us. And then the next slide, I'm going to pass it over.
That would be me. So when you become a board member, there are legal duties and standards that you must be aware of that will conduct your behavior when being a board member. And these duties enshrine the ethical, the lawful, and the effective governance piece. So the first one is the duty of care or duty of diligence. And what that basically means is that you have to act reasonably. You have to be prudent, and you have to act in good faith, meaning that you're making the best decisions for the board and for the market. You always prioritize the best interests of our market and its members when you're making your decision, and that should be your guiding principle. And it also means that you have to stay informed, meaning that you have to attend meetings, read over the agenda before it goes ahead, reports and whatnot, and then actively participate when you attend a meeting. Next is duty of obedience, and that means we have to follow our organization's governing policies, meaning we apply with laws, rules, or bylaws, and that we always make sure that our decisions align with our mission that we've talked about. Next is duty of loyalty or the fiduciary duty, and that means that you have to act honestly and in good faith for the benefit of the entire farmers market. I had to look up fiduciary because it's been a while since I've been in law school. It just means trust. That's the guiding principle that governs all aspects of our relationship with the market. So when you look at that, what does that mean? It means that you're not going to use your board position to advance your personal or vendors' interests. So that means you're not going to go up and down and ask for freebies from folks because you're on the board. Or you're not going to take a position with a vendor. For instance, Brenda, you're not going to take on the flower industry, and just say, we need more flower folks at the market, because I know and I represent them. So you have to make sure that you remain neutral. And also that whenever you vote or whenever you speak, it's always at the best interest of our of our organization, and that these fiduciary duties continue after you leave the board. So Even if you win the lottery on the weekend and you're off and you step down, it means that we're going to go over, for instance, confidentiality. All of our discussions that we have stay within the confines of everyone who's on the board. You're not going to talk to your wife or husband at the end of tonight's meeting and go, you know what Jackie said, or you can't believe what we decided. That's a no. So the next piece is officer liability overview. And just at a high level, when I first joined the board, this was very important because it's the first thing I asked is, do we have directors and officer liability insurance? Which means that we can be sued if we make a bad decision. However, as long as we can show we were reasonable and acted in good faith, we will be covered by our own liability insurance. And what that means in terms of reality is when I first joined the board, we were being sued by the former manager, and she had created a lawsuit as well as a human rights tribunal action against us. And however, because the board acted in good faith, our insurer took it on and they dealt with it. And we ended up resolving it because unfortunately that person died, and so did their actions against us. So it's always, whether it's with us or with whatever board you have, always ask them if they have directors and officers liability insurance, because we always make sure to pay that bill. Next is confidentiality. And as I talked about it, everything that we talk about in our board meeting is confidential. And also, if you're given sensitive information in our discussions, that you protect that and you don't share it, whether it's personal, our finances, any legal matters. So I just told you about a lawsuit. That's not for public consumption. And then with the solidarity, this one is important, is that we speak with one voice. So we can have 101 different ideas, and when we're making a motion and we're deciding on a course of action, the time to discuss that is in our meeting. It's not afterwards, because once we make a decision, we are one voice. So once that decision is made, you can't go out and say, "Wow, Jackie went down this way, but I totally was, this other way." We are one whenever we step outside the board meeting. And then conflict of interest, I did cover in terms of always making sure that you're acting on behalf of the board and not in your individual personal interests. Next slide. I got the lengthy slides, it looks like, Elaine. You got the nice, easy, short one. In terms of what you need to know for key documents and resources, we are governed by our bylaws and our incorporation documents. Bylaws are required, and they basically form the governance framework. And so what that means is, when we were looking at what are the duties of a treasurer and vice president, you look at the bylaws and it actually lists everything. When we have our AGM, it outlines how many days ahead we need to serve our notice and what is quorum. So it's kind of like the rule or the handbook of our organization. In terms of a strategic plan, we've had discussions in regards to what what we're going to look like in 3 to 5 years, and just being apprised of that and also having some input into that as well as a board member. And then we always produce an annual report, and as you may recall, that was attached to our AGM, and it gives everyone a standing as to what we've done, as well as we also attach the financial statements, which shows the incoming and the outgoing money, so that everyone knows exactly where we stand. And then lastly, I'm just going to throw it in here and I can put it into the chat, is the governance manual put on by the BCAFM board. And they actually have a really good, very thorough handout where you can read. And I actually got some of the notes from there that goes through what it means to be on a board specific for a farmer's market. And I don't know if down the road we might want to pick some of the topics that they have, but it's just good reading if you're ever wanting to know a little bit more about your duties and responsibilities. All right, next slide. So in terms of the roles, we also have committees and what that looks like. And so there's two different kinds of committees. There's standing committees, which means that every year they're annually and they're always there. And currently we have our policy committee, our customer appreciation committee. In terms of ad hoc committees, those are ones that we appoint as needed. So I suspect we're going to have to appoint one to set up what 80 stalls are going to look like in the new year. So that would be something that just created one and done kind of thing. Your expectation as a board member is to volunteer to be part of those committees, and also if you're part of them, make sure you attend and take on the work that you're assigned. Next, in terms of reference and reporting, I had to look that one up. But basically, what it means is that we're governed by the Society Act, as that governs all nonprofits. And you may recall that I'm following up with our law firm to ensure that every year we file our proper paperwork with under the Society Act. Um, and then lastly, in terms of engagement of non-board volunteers, we can, if we wish, we can have non-board people take on be part of our committees. They can sit as a member at large on our board if we so desire. In case someone is like, I don't want to take on the full responsibility of being a board member, but I'm happy to stand up and put my hand up to help out on any of the committees. Bear that in mind in case you see someone. And I'll just leave you with always plan to replace yourself. So leave something better than what you left it. And I can honestly say, as I look across everyone in this room, the farmers market has improved so much over the past few years. And all I ask is that when you step down, that you kind of find somebody who's going to replace you. Because it'd be great that we have that succession planning, and who better than ourselves to kind of see the qualities that we need in a board member.
The other thing is, if you are doing anything that is on behalf of the market, you should try to make sure that it's paid through the market card, and Patty manages that for us. So it's important just for tracking expenses purposes that we handle it that way. A couple of things that I know I didn't really understand in the beginning, even though I was a vendor. So I think it's helpful to really just know what our approach is. And this has evolved over the last couple of years as well. So if there is to be a refund, vendors have to apply to the board for that refund at the end of the year. It's very important, and it comes through in that way. And we've really changed this process, which allows us to better manage our finances and be more fiscally responsible. So there can be an extenuating circumstance from time to time that's outside of a vendor's control, and that typically is something that we manage through a request that's made to the president, and then the president will bring that request to the board if she or he feels that it's appropriate. So we do have an approach there, and it's important that we follow that if somebody's asking for a refund. So really, we want to make sure that we're managing this in this way. And the other and last, and I think very important thing is no cancellation refund is typically issued unless there is some major reason. And so even when I joined the board a couple of years ago, there was still some of those requests coming in. And I think it's just like any business, it's very hard to manage when the situation is constantly changing. And so I think those have been very positive changes in the process as we've gone forward. Now this here, and thank you, Nicole, for being so willing to jump in. You are an absolute rock star. Not knowing any of the content that was there. You were so willing. And I had some time to sort of chat with Patty about this because obviously this is really about our emergency response and the risk management. And in this last year, there was a tragedy at a market. We talked about this earlier. So we've broken this really into two sections. And this is something in the first section that Patty and the team really deal with on an ongoing basis. And so identifying this more as a customer vendor incident. So the staff team has first aid and response experience. And so Patty really makes sure that this is taken care of in her role as manager of the market. But what the team also does is they have a first aid kit at every station. So there's 3 of them that we have today, and very likely we'll have more as we move forward. When something happens, Patty is notified immediately, and I'm sure you've all seen Patty on market days. She's moving about the entire market, but she's notified. She basically takes control of the situation and then delegates the appropriate staff person and on-site nurse in PAM to make sure that that situation is covered. So that's really our response in the situation where we have a customer or a vendor incident. In the next major bucket, we've called it the major incident crises that takes place. And so this is really where, in all situations, Patty's notified and engages immediately with emergency response. The other thing that the market manager in Patty does is she notifies the president. And so by notifying the president, that really then gives Elaine in her capacity the ability to communicate, make a decision when and how to communicate with the board and make sure that then she's monitoring and leading future communication with us together with Patty. The last thing I'll say is emergency response plan. I think we've been evolving that over the last couple of years as things have obviously been happening. So the first part noted on this slide is something that I think Patty and the team have been dealing with on an ongoing basis. But with the tragedy that happened last year, our recommendation here is that we review this response plan annually and make any changes and make sure we have the right roles covered. One more slide for me, Nicole, and then I am passing it over to you.
Okay.
So I will do that. This here is really just reinforcing, I think, some of the things that both Elaine and Jackie have already said. With good board attendance and engagement, I think we end up with this incredibly solid board. We didn't cover our orientation, but I have seen a complete change this year about the board being so active. It's impressive seeing you guys at the market every week. It means a lot. And maybe just speaking about it, not as a fellow board member, but as a vendor, I think it matters to people that there is that connection point. So, that's the real goals here is we want to make sure that people know who you are, that you're attending and preparing for meetings, coming ready to have those deep discussions that Jackie talked about and agreeing or disagreeing, but leaving with one voice. Supporting events and fundraising. This group is doing this in spades, whether it's a parade or something with our young people or any of the things that are up there. It's impressive. Contributing skills and network is a big piece. And again, I think we've seen this with this board in particular, a real shift and something that I think we should all feel incredibly proud of. And then last but not least, really looking to serve on a committee or be involved and engaged at a deeper level than just board meetings. So Nicole, are you ready for me to pass it to you?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Okay, so for the calendar and meeting logistics, the calendar is sort of self-explanatory, but it's funny the things that you don't realize happen throughout the year. Patty is literally working from February all the way to December. I think maybe you get January off, I'm thinking, but otherwise that's it. And in those different months, there's like before the end of the season, Patty is already gearing up for next year's season. And now the dates for when the market is open, those always fluctuate a little bit, but it's always middle of April they start and it ends middle of October. And in between there, she has to have vendors set up and, the staff trained, and we have a couple different appreciation days throughout the market. And all of those days, again, we're new with this, so we've just put in the dates that we used last year, assuming that's sort of in and around when we'll do the same events for next year. This year, we've also included ordering sponsored bags. So of course we have to have our sponsorships in by a certain time, which we've put for the end of November. And in order to accommodate that, we have to start asking, sponsors, in advance. So usually we're hoping in October that we will start this process. And so again, this is all new. And so this year we've put it together, but it is a process. Board meetings are once a month, and that is in there as well. So it's usually every third Thursday of the month. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but there is a full calendar set up now from February 4th to, November. So otherwise, the notice and quorum requirements, I think those are, I don't actually have those set up in there. I don't know when those are, but and again, I think they're in and around the same time every year. If I remember, our AGM was like, I think July or June of this year, so it'll be the same uh, in the following year. Meeting materials, they are to come out 14 days prior. I do apologize as your secretary. I'm not really good at following that, but we will get better. Um, and that is really, I mean, to be fair, being, having this be a part of our board, I think it'll just make everything run a little bit smoother and quicker. So it's good. Otherwise, I think that's it. Do I have any more slides? Oh, okay. Resources. So the resources and next steps, when you become a member, a board member, we are hoping to have an orientation package. I'm assuming this that we are speaking of, put together and presented, as well as the video or this recording for people to listen to. There are training opportunities through BCAFM, and you can just watch those online. Um, Commitment to ongoing governance and learning. That's, I think, also just another online part, if I'm correct, Jackie.
This
Are
is
those classes to watch online?
No, sorry, Jackie, I can jump in here. So the
Okay.
idea here is just this. So the document under training opportunities is the one that Jackie referred to. The
Yeah.
commitment to ongoing governance and learning is just as a board, if something comes up or there's a change, you just want to commit to that in terms of an action as a board member that you should always undertake. That's really the point of that one.
Okay. Okay.
Beautiful, and no problem. And we can add the other dates that you haven't added at this point, so we have a complete picture for board members, not a problem.
Yeah, because then I think some of those change randomly, right, throughout. So anyways, last being questions, reach out to president or market manager, which is sort of self-explanatory.
Yeah.